When GT7's 1.13 patch dropped, we of course got 3 new cars, this being one of them, and as I alluded to in my overarching review of that update, this was in my opinion the standout of the pack. The Subaru BRZ, in particular of course a 2021 shape GT300 car. Now GT300 was sorely lacking overall in GT Sport, but in GT6 and of course in the older games, there was a pretty nice little showing of those cars. Some of my personal favourites being stuff like the ASL Garaya, the Wed Sport Lexus, which seemed to be a fairly undervalued car by many people, and of course, what most people would go for, the obvious Asparadraink RX-7, which is always a strong choice, and I could actually see that one coming back in future because we did have a premium version of that. This one though is brand new to the series. Again though, we did have a Subaru BRZ GT300 car in Gran Turismo 6. This one though is the updated version. Now the reason why I say this is the standout of the 3 cars added in the April update is not just because of how quick it is, which obviously is the quickest of the 3 because the other 2 were the normal version and the Suzuki Cappuccino, but because of just how insanely good, and let's be honest, OP, the handling and grip level on this thing is. It's easily one of the best handling cars in GT7 so far. Is that just nepotism toward Japanese cars? Well, sort of. I mean, let's be honest, you could kind of say that about a lot of Japanese cars in Gran Turismo's history, but at the same time, GT cars, or Super GT cars, are known for being phenomenally quick. These days, very similar to DTM touring cars, of course there was talks about them merging the rulebook, and DTM has also always been super OP in Gran Turismo, the CLK touring car, the Opel Astra, the Calibra, and of course even the Alfa 155, which they brought back in this game. This one though is just a force to be reckoned with. I know there were some people who found it to be an issue that this car were placed in Group 3, maybe that it should be somewhere else. To be honest, I'm fine with that for 2 reasons. One, it's way too fast for Group 4, so that just wouldn't be fair. But also, if you look at the specs on the car, well, it just naturally fits into Group 3. In fact, it actually has better specs than a lot of Group 3 cars. At the same time though, although it is a Super GT, there is no way this should be in Group 2, because that just doesn't make sense. So, what kind of specs are you working with? Well, first of all, the performance points is 735.94, so basically 736 stock. Very high. As I said, even within Group 3 that is pretty high. In terms of power, even though it's a GT300 car, it's still got 478 horsepower, so it certainly isn't lacking. In terms of weight, it's 1150 kilos, so generally speaking, that's like a good 50 or so kilos lighter than quite a few of the like GT3 style cars in the Group 3 category. Of course it's front engine, rear wheel drive, turbo aspirated, but in terms of the actual performance, it does have more power than many, it is lighter than many, but maybe it's just me, this thing doesn't feel overwhelmingly quick in a straight line. I mean, I must be honest, I haven't done a back-to-back drag race between this and all the other Group 3 cars, so I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel all that quick in a straight line. I could certainly see something like a Ferrari 458 Group 3 or the GT by Citroën being quicker than this in a straight line, but it really is the cornering where this car just, to be honest, runs away from the competition. If you put this stock to stock against most Group 3 cars, it's going to wipe the floor with many of them on really technical circuits. On wide open circuits, maybe not so much, like Le Mans for example, but if you take this on somewhere super tight, super twisty, like Dragon Trail, or for example if they were to bring Monaco back, this thing would kill on Monaco. The level of grip is, I would say, 2 things. One, very reminiscent of an all-wheel drive, or more accurately a 4-wheel drive car with like a 50-50 torque split, which is great to work with, but also so good that it almost feels like the car is tempting you to try and lose control. That was actually something fun which I did when I first drove it, trying to test the limits of, when is this thing going to run out of grip? And it can, but it tends to be really low speed corners like hairpins if you just give it full throttle midway through. And to be fair, most race cars are going to lose grip at that level, especially if they aren't 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Anything beyond that, or anything within that I should say, that level, in other words, being sensible about it, it's going to have more grip than you would ever realistically need. To the point of being a very, very headache-inducing car in online lobbies. I could see this being a hated car, much like For example, you know, the light car company Rocket or the Chaparral 2J in previous games, this could easily become that. Now with balance of performance that could change, but at least stock versus stock, this is a force to be reckoned with. Ultimately, I think it kind of goes without saying that, yeah, you should buy this car if you've done the update. I know for some of you might have put the game to one side, or maybe even some have uninstalled it. If you've uninstalled Gran Turismo, I definitely wouldn't say this update is worth reinstalling it to play, but if you've maybe put the game to one side for a while or just haven't got around to buying these new ones yet, I would say this one is worth a look, because if you think about it this way, even if you don't love Subaru or love GT class racers, it's just a useful car to have. For this category and for this price, being no more expensive than any other, it's a good value machine to own. It's very good to work with, it's very good through corners, it's consistent as well, which is hugely important. And really the only knock I would give it, which to be fair isn't really a knock against the car, is also to do with the handling, and that is that because it has so much grip, it can actually sometimes have the complete opposite effect to what you'll typically have in a Group 3 car, where in most Group 3s tend to have that bit of tail-happy slipperiness, which you'd expect. This one is the complete opposite. So with this one, if you brake a little bit too late, you will experience really, really heavy understeer. So that's something that you'll need to plan for. The brakes are good, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're phenomenal, so as long as you brake in time, it has almost perfect handling in my opinion. If you brake a little bit too late though, the car will definitely let you know, because you'll end up being pretty slow through the corner because of how heavy it becomes. So the trick with this one, I would say, is try to keep your average speed up and brake a little bit earlier than it might feel like you need to, until you really get bedded in with the car, and then you'll be able to truly fly, because this car really can fly. Ultimately, that's it for my thoughts. Tell me yours down below. Are you a fan of the car? Do you agree with what I said? Maybe any additional things that you like about it? Or maybe you disagree and don't like it. Either way, let me know. And of course, stick around on the channel for more. And of course, the last car that we need to review still from this update is the road-going version of this BRZ. So stick around for that as well, and I'll see you next time. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.